Hello friends and stampers, this is Glenda Mollet from In My Craft Room, and I am doing my very first ever video for you today. I'm a little nervous, so I hope I don't blue-boo too much. Okay, so we're going to be making this card today. This card is for a masculine stamping event that I have coming up. May is always masculine month in my craft room. So let's get started. The card base is 11 by 4 1/4, scored at 5 1/2, and I'm using the new thick white Whisper White cardstock today. You need to fold this in half, but I've been asked many times, how do I know which way to fold my card base? Well, it's quite easy as long as you remember in is out. So when you score it, you push in on the top and it pushes out the cardstock on the back. When it pushes the cardstock in, it stretches all those paper fibers to make it easier for it to go around the curve at the top of the card. So that's the inside, so that's going to be out. I'm going to flip my card base over and fold it, and then use my bone folder to make a nice crease on there. I have a piece of 5 1/4 inch by 4 inch designer series paper from the Neutrals designer series paper pack. This is in early espresso. And then I have a piece of 3/4 inch by about 3 inch Whisper White cardstock. I have a piece of 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch Whisper White cardstock. And to do the inside, I have a piece of 5 1/4 by 4 inch Whisper White cardstock. And I have a Whisper White envelope. Okay, we're going to be using Early Espresso ink today, the Early Espresso Stampin' Right marker. The two stamp sets we will be using are Traveler, and we're going to be using the steam engine image, and Guy Greetings, and we'll be using the Happy Birthday out of this set. But I'm going to move the cutter over 2 inches. I'm going to line the edge of it up at 2 5/8 because that is the center of 5 1/4 inches, and just cut 1/4 or 2 inches into the center of this card piece of designer paper. And now I'm going to use a ruler to help me fold back the flaps on the designer paper. And I find it's easy to do if you line up the edge of the ruler with the tip on this side of the corner and the other end up with the end of the cut line. So there's the cut line, and I've lined it up like that. And I'm just going to fold this over to give it a place to start for the fold. It makes it easier to do. You don't get cracking of your designer paper that way. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Just line it up there and fold this back and give it a crease line to start. And then we'll just fold it over. Now I'm going to use the bone folder, make those creases nice and crisp. And I'm going to use a little bit of Snail adhesive on the back just to stop them from popping up once I have the card put together. You don't need much, just a little bit to hold it. Okay, so we're getting out the thick Whisper White cardstock card base, and I want to figure out where to stamp the train. I want the train to be coming out of the fold of the designer paper, so I'm going to stamp it quite a ways over on this side of the card. But to know where that is, I'm just going to use a pencil to give us a little bit of a guide. So I'm going to line my designer paper up with the 1/8 inch frame all the way around. Then I'm going to use my pencil, and I'm just going to make a couple of light marks, and we'll erase those once we have our image stamped on there. So I'm using Early Espresso ink today, and I'm just going to ink up the train image. And when I'm stamping, I always put the stamp down, hold it firmly, and then just rub my finger over it. It stops your image from rocking. And as you saw when I inked it, I got a little bit of ink on the edge of the rubber. But by rubbing it, not rocking it, it doesn't transfer onto my card. Okay, so now I'm going to erase those pencil marks, because we don't want those on our card. Okay, so the next step is to take our 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 inch piece of Whisper White cardstock and stamp our train again. And we want to make sure we get the smoke in as well. So I'm just going to stamp it there. Nice firm pressure gives us a nice clean image. And then you're going to want to fussy cut it out all the way around. I just cut out the train, but you do need the smoke. So I did that ahead of time. I'm going to use Wink of Stella just to give the smoke a little bit of bling, because what's a card without bling? Doesn't matter if it's a masculine card or a feminine card. It just makes it so much better. And because the Wink of Stella is water-based and the Early Espresso ink is water-based, it will actually move the color around and make that smoke kind of grayish. Now it's time to do the sentiment. And this is Happy Birthday from Guy Greetings. Stamp it on here. And hopefully it's going to be straight, or relatively straight. Okay, and we'll put that to the side, and I'm going to close my ink because I'm notorious for getting ink everywhere. Okay, so now I'm just going to put this back on here and do a dry run. Just make sure it looks like I want it to look like. Yep, looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to put adhesive on, but I don't want to put it down here because we have to be able to slide that train underneath. So I just put a little bit on there, and I'm going to line it up so that there's a 1/8 inch frame all the way around. Okay, now we have the train poking out exactly where I want it, and our folded back designer paper is attached. So now it's time to add the train, the one that we cut out. And I've put dimensionals on the front end of the train, and I put a little piece of a dimensional up on the front end of the smoke. Because if you can see, I have it popped up here and here, but it slides under the designer paper, so you don't want to put your dimensionals there, and you don't want your smoke to be popping up either, because then it gets too thick to go through the mail. So I have dimensionals on the front end of the train, some on the smoke, and then I'm just going to put a little bit of adhesive there and there, just so when I slide it in that it's going to fit properly. Okay, so I'll do it this way so you can see. And I'm going to take the backing off of my dimensionals and the little piece, and I'm just going to slide that underneath the designer paper and line up the fussy cut image with the stamped image like that. And there we got it. Perfect. Alright, so now the only thing left to do on the card front is to put the happy birthday in there. And I want it to sit right here in the corner of the designer paper. So we're going to flip this over. I need to figure out where to put the cut. And it's going to, the center of it's going to be right about there. And then if I put it where I want it, then I can also mark those two spots so it's easier to do the cut. Okay, I'm just going to snip that to the center like that, and snip that to the center like that. And hopefully that's going to be a little bit where I want it. There we go. Now this is also going to be up on Dimensionals. So I'll just add a piece of dimensional there, and we'll just cut off a little bit. For over 4 years now, I've been saving these strips from my Dimensionals because I wanted to have a shaker class, and this would make beautiful shaker strips. So this year I figure I have almost enough to do a shaker card class, and now Stampin' Up! Is coming out with strips of Dimensionals, and I can't wait. It's going to be so fun. I love shaker cards. Okay, so we'll just take the backing off of the Dimensionals, put the happy birthday on where I want it. There we go. So we have the card is all done. We have the train stamped, cut out, and slid underneath. The designer paper has been folded over. So the only thing left to do now is the inside and the envelopes. And I never ever ever send out a card that's naked on the inside, and the envelope is never naked. So there's the inside, and we're just going to stamp that image, and I'm going to use the early Espresso marker to go around the edge of that white cardstock just to make it stand out a bit more. And then there's the envelope that we'll be doing. So we'll get my 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece of Whisper White cardstock for the inside. And we're going to ink up the train. And we'll just stamp it right about there. Rub my finger over it for good ink transfer. There we go. And get the envelope, and it looks like my early Espresso ink pad needs to be re-inked. Hey, we're going to just stick the train on there. Okay, so now I have the inside is done, and I'm just going to use the brush end of my early Espresso marker and go around the edge of this cardstock, just so it gives it a bit of definition when I put white on the inside. Doesn't take too long to do that. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to put my adhesive on here. And we'll line it up on the inside of the card, leaving that 1/8 inch frame all the way around, and there we go. Just that easy. And see how it gives it a little bit of distinction in there? This one I didn't do that with, so you can see what the difference is. And either way is fine. You could also sponge with a sponger and some early Espresso ink, or maybe if you don't want it as dark as early Espresso, crumb cake would work as well. And there's the envelope. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope you have a wonderful day in your craft room. Have a crafty day. Bye-bye.